When Elon Musk came home 3 days earlier than planned, he thought he was the one holding the surprise. Instead, it was his children who stunned him. At midnight, under the dark Texas sky, he spotted bright lights in the backyard. But these weren't garden lights. They were work lamps, surrounding something tall, silver, and impossible for kids to build alone. Elon froze. His 3 children were whispering like engineers, double-checking gauges, and talking about fuel levels and ignition. And in the center stood a rocket, a real 6-foot rocket, right there in his backyard. It was the moment that would change his family forever. A secret project months in the making, one that would bring SpaceX mission control into his home, catch NASA's attention, and eventually spark rumors that the Musk family might become the first to set foot on Mars together. But how did 3 kids pull off something that left one of the world's top rocket scientists speechless? And how could a backyard experiment turn into a story that had the whole aerospace world buzzing? Earlier that day, Elon had been sitting on his jet, staring out the window at the Pacific Ocean. He should have been celebrating. His Tokyo meetings went better than expected. A new Tesla factory was on schedule, yet something tugged at him. He was supposed to stay in Japan 3 more days. More meetings, more contracts, more deadlines. But instead of excitement, he felt an ache. He hadn't tucked his youngest son into bed in weeks. He hadn't heard about his twin school projects in person. He scrolled through photos on his phone. Nova at her science fair holding a trophy, Phoenix with paint all over his clothes from art class, Sage in his astronaut t-shirt on his birthday. The moments were slipping away too fast. So he canceled everything. 3 days early, he boarded his jet for Austin. He imagined the looks on their faces when he walked through the door. He thought he would be the one delivering the surprise. But as the jet touched down and his car pulled into the driveway, he saw it. Strange, bright lights flickering behind the oak tree. Not the glow of a movie night. Not a flashlight from playing tag. These were strong work lights, and they were moving. And that's when everything changed. But the lights were only the beginning, because what Elon found in the backyard was nothing he could have ever expected. Elon moved quietly along the side of the house, staying in the shadows. The closer he got, the stranger became. His kids' voices floated through the night air, but not in the way he usually heard them. No silly jokes, no playful arguments. Instead, it was focused, sharp, and technical. Fuel levels at 70%. Engine alignment confirmed. Ignition system ready. Elon stopped in his tracks. Fuel levels? Engine alignment? Ignition? These weren't words kids threw around for fun. And then he saw it, rising 6 feet into the air, painted silver with red stripes down its side. Stood a rocket. Not a toy, not cardboard. A solid, gleaming rocket with gauges, switches, and even a control table wired to its base. His daughter Nova wore safety goggles and flipped through a notebook filled with diagrams. Phoenix tightened bolts with a wrench. Little Sage carefully poured liquid into a tank, like he was prepping for liftoff. All 3 wore matching shirts with 3 bold words across the back. Project Home Run. Elon blinked, rubbed his eyes, and stared again. It was real. His children had secretly built a rocket in his backyard. And they weren't just playing. They were running full pre-flight checks like trained engineers. The kind of countdowns he heard every day at SpaceX, only smaller, faster, and led by kids who were supposed to be in bed. They weren't just trying to launch something into the night sky. They were trying to prove something. But where had they learned all of this? And how could 3 kids possibly pull off something so complex without him ever noticing? That answer was waiting just a few minutes later, when smoke hissed in the rocket and a calm voice shouted the kind of command you'd expect in a NASA control room, not a backyard. Just as Nova raised her hand over the launch button, a sharp sound broke the night. Thick white smoke gushed from the base of the rocket, hissing like a leaky tire. Elon's heart jumped. He was about to sprint toward his kids. But before he could move, Nova's voice cut through the chaos. Emergency shutoff. Phoenix, now! Phoenix slammed his palm onto a big red button on their control table. The hissing stopped instantly. Sage bolted behind a wooden barrier they had built, eyes wide but steady. Nova stayed calm, checking gauges. No panic, no tears, just pure focus. Elon froze again, not in fear, but in shock. His children were reacting like trained engineers. They had emergency systems, safety barriers, and a backup plan. He couldn't believe it. They weren't just playing with fire. They knew exactly what to do when things went wrong. Minutes later, when the smoke cleared, the kids gathered to talk it through. Phoenix admitted he might have mixed the fuel wrong. Nova reminded him of what their dad always said: every failure teaches you something. Sage unfolded a piece of paper, a letter he had written for Elon, explaining they built rockets because they wanted to dream big, just like him. Elon's throat tightened. He had no idea this was happening in his own backyard. And then headlights swept across the yard. A truck door slammed. A new voice called out, "How's Project Home Run tonight?" Elon squinted. An older man in a baseball cap walked over, toolbox in hand. His kids lit up when they saw him. "Hi, Mr. Peterson," they shouted in unison. Elon's eyes widened. Mr. Peterson wasn't just a friendly neighbor who worked in his garden. As the man examined the rocket, he casually mentioned fuel systems, welding joints, and emergency designs. Then he dropped the truth. Decades ago, he had been a NASA engineer. The Musk kids hadn't been alone. They had a mentor, someone who had worked on the space shuttle program, guiding them through every step. Elon suddenly understood. This wasn't child's play. It was real engineering with real expertise behind it. But the shock wasn't over yet, because what came next would take their backyard project far beyond the fence and straight into the ears of SpaceX Mission Control. Elon had barely caught his breath from discovering his retired NASA neighbor when Nova glanced at her watch. T-minus 10 minutes. Let's prep for second launch. The kids weren't giving up. Phoenix had already fixed the loose connection. Sage reset the camera. Nova checked every line in their thick notebook. The pages filled with calculations that looked eerily like the binders stacked at SpaceX headquarters. And that's when Elon made a decision. He pulled out his phone, dialed a number, and waited. "This is Elon. I know it's late, but patch me through to Mission Control." His kids froze. Their jaws dropped. Within seconds, a calm professional voice filled the air. "SpaceX Mission Control, to Project Home Run. Do you read?" Nova's eyes nearly popped out her head. She fumbled with the tablet before answering. "This is Commander Nova. We read you loud and clear." The line crackled as more voices joined. Engineers from Hawthorne, flight directors in Texas, people Elon's children had only seen in videos. And now, they were addressing them like fellow rocket scientists. "Commander Nova, confirm mission parameters. Phoenix, report on engine readiness. Sage, communications check." Elon watched in awe as his 3 kids transformed before his eyes. They weren't just kids in a backyard anymore. They were being treated as equals by professionals who send spacecraft into orbit, and they handled it flawlessly. One engineer even praised their design. That emergency shut-off system could save lives on a real rocket. The kids glowed with pride. They weren't playing pretend. They were running a live mission with SpaceX in their ear. For Elon, the moment was surreal. His family, his own children, had quietly crossed from imagination into aerospace reality. But then came the part that hit him hardest. Nova leaned into the mic and announced, "Payload secure." Inside their rocket was no experiment, no sample tube. It was a framed photograph of Elon holding his twins as babies. It wasn't just a rocket launch. It was a message. "We want you with us, Dad." And just when Elon thought the night couldn't get any more overwhelming, the rocket revealed one last secret. One that would bring the countdown to a halt and uncover something far more emotional than fuel or engines. The countdown ticked closer. Nova's finger hovered over the launch button. Mission Control's voices were steady in her ear. 10, 9, 8. A sharp click. Nothing. The rocket stayed silent. "Hold, hold, hold." Nova shouted, her command crisp, professional. Phoenix rushed to check the engine. Sage steadied the camera. Elon braced himself, ready to sprint in if something went wrong. But then Phoenix froze. His flashlight caught something unusual near the base. "Guys, come here." Engraved in the metal panel were tiny words. "For Nova, Phoenix, and Sage. Dream big, fly high. Love, always, Dad. The children turned to Elon in confusion. Dad, when did you write this? Elon shook his head. He had never seen it before. Mr. Peterson stepped forward, smiling knowingly. Remember the special edition panel we installed last week? You three forgot. It doubles as a safety lock. Nova pressed on the panel, and with a soft hiss it slid open. Inside was a hidden compartment. Carefully packed inside were 3 folded papers and a small, heavy metal object. Sage reached in first. "These are our wishes," he whispered. We each wrote one down. Phoenix lifted the object next. Elon's breath caught. He knew that piece instantly. The very first bolt tightened on SpaceX's first rocket, Falcon 1. He had saved it years ago, tucked away in a memory box. "You took this?" Elon asked, his voice trembling. "We wanted history with us," Nova explained softly. "A piece of your dream inside ours." Elon's throat tightened again. His kids hadn't stolen it. They had honored it. Then came the wishes. Nova unfolded hers first. "I wish Dad knew we're proud of him, not just for rockets, but for dreaming big and never giving up." Phoenix read his. "I wish our family could spend more time building and learning together like a real team." Finally, Sage handed his messy handwriting to Elon. His father read aloud through shaking hands. "I wish Dad knew he's not just good at rockets. He's good at being a dad, too. And we love him more than the moon, Mars, and all the stars." Elon sat down right there in the grass, tears rolling freely. His kids sat beside him, one on each side, as if instinctively shielding him from the weight of the moment. For years, Elon thought he was building rockets for the future. But his children have been quietly building something just as powerful, a bridge back to him. And with those wishes sealed inside their rocket, they were about to prove to the world and to their father just how far a family's dream could fly. But as the countdown resumed, a phone call would turn this family experiment into something much bigger, something that NASA itself couldn't ignore. The wishes were tucked back inside. The safety lock clicked shut. The rocket was ready again. But before Nova could restart the countdown, Elon's phone buzzed. He glanced down, expecting a routine message. Instead, his screen showed something that made him sit straighter. "NASA," he answered. "This is Elon." A calm female voice came through. "Mr. Musk, this is Dr. Martinez from NASA's Human Spaceflight Program. We heard chatter from your mission control tonight. Is it true? Your children designed and launched this rocket." Elon hesitated. He looked at his kids, all waiting for his answer. "Yes," he said finally, "and you wouldn't believe the work they've done." The line went quiet. Then, "We're launching a new initiative called Generation Mars. It's focused on the next wave of explorers, not just individual astronauts, but families. Families who can learn, train, and one day live together in space. After what we've seen tonight, we think your children may be perfect candidates." Nova's eyes went wide. Phoenix gripped Sage's shoulder. Sage whispered, "Did she say families on Mars?" Elon pressed the phone to his chest. He could hardly believe it. NASA was considering a program that sounded almost identical to what his kids had secretly planned in their notebooks. Dr. Martinez's voice returned. "Imagine this. Not just astronauts in suits, but entire household prepared to support each other on long missions. Families who already know how to work as a team. The psychological research suggests they adapt better, survive longer, and handle stress with more resilience." Elon felt something shift inside him. For years, SpaceX had focused on technology, rockets, engines, fuel. But here was a different kind of blueprint, one that wasn't about hardware, but about humans, about families, about his family. When the call ended, Elon turned to his kids. "NASA wants to see your designs. They want families to be part of the future of Mars. And they want us together." Phoenix's jaw dropped. "Dad, does that mean?" Elon nodded. "It means Project Home Run isn't just a backyard dream anymore. It could be the start of something global." And he meant it. He wasn't just thinking about one launch. He was thinking about thousands of families, kids, and parents around the world, looking up at the stars and realizing they had a place in the mission. But as that possibility sank in, Elon also knew this. Once the world heard about his kid's rocket, there would be no going back. And within months, that little backyard launch would ripple into workshops, headlines, and a worldwide movement of families building their own rockets. 6 months after that midnight backyard launch, Elon stood in a giant hangar outside Houston. But this time, he wasn't surrounded by SpaceX engineers in black shirts. Instead, he saw rows of families, mothers, fathers, kids as young as 8, all gathered around tables filled with rocket parts. On the wall behind them hung a banner with 3 bold words: Project Home Run. What began as a backyard secret had exploded into a global movement. Families from all over the world were signing up for hands-on workshops, where they weren't just learning how rockets work. They were building them together, parents and children side by side, tightening bolts, programming flight paths, and running safety checks just like Nova, Phoenix, and SAGE had months earlier. NASA took notice quickly. Reports claimed the agency had never seen engagement like this before. Kids weren't daydreaming about space anymore. They were actively preparing for it. And families weren't just supporting from the sidelines. They were training as full-fledged teams. But the real leap came 6 years later. By then, the Musk family had become the face of what was now officially called the Generation Mars program. Across training bases in Texas, California, and even simulated habitats in the deserts of Utah, families lived in sealed domes for months at a time. They tested food systems, recycled water, managed power grids, all while continuing school, work, and daily life. The program had one goal: to prove that families could survive and thrive in the harsh, isolated environment of Mars. Nova, Phoenix, and SAGE had grown into confident young engineers. Their notebooks had become full technical manuals. Their backyard rocket had become a symbol pinned to NASA jackets worldwide. And Elon, for once in his life, he wasn't the one in charge. He was a student again, learning alongside his children. Journalists called it the most ambitious experiment in human history. Critics doubted it, fans cheered it, and rumors swirled constantly about whether the Musks would be chosen for first real flight. Reports suggested other families were already in training for the same goal, and the competition was fierce. But through it all, one truth remained. It all started with a simple wish, a midnight secret, and 3 kids who refused to wait for permission to dream. And as the world waited for the next announcement, one question hung in the air. Would the first human footprint on Mars belong not to a lone astronaut, but to an entire family? On that first night, Elon Musk thought he was surprising his kids by coming home early. Instead, his children surprised him with a secret rocket, a hidden message, and a vision far bigger than even he had imagined. The world saw a billionaire father stunned by 3 little engineers. NASA saw a new model for human survival. And families everywhere saw something even more important. Proof that dreaming together could be more powerful than dreaming alone. The rocket in the backyard never reached orbit. But in a way, it didn't have to. Its real mission succeeded the moment it lifted Elon's eyes from the launch pad to the people standing right beside him. Because the future of exploration isn't only about fuel, engines, or spacecraft. It's about connection. About teams that don't just work side by side, but live side by side, through fear, through failure, through the unknown. And that's why the most groundbreaking launch that night wasn't 6 feet of steel and fuel. It was a family deciding that their bond could reach farther than Mars. Now, here's the question for you. If NASA opened applications tomorrow, not for astronauts, but for families, would yours sign up? Could your household survive the long journey, the isolation and the unknown? Think about it. Because if a backyard rocket can change the future of space exploration, maybe your family's story could, too. And as for Elon's family, their journey is just beginning. Because one midnight launch proved a truth that no rocket scientist can ignore. The most powerful fuel on Earth is love. So if you enjoyed this story, make sure you like this video, drop your answer in the comments, and subscribe for more stories that reveal the human side behind the headlines. Because tonight was just the first chapter, and the next one may be even closer than you think.